Envy may seem like a small, almost invisible emotion. But in reality, it has the power to erode our inner peace and even harm our relationships. It begins as a simple comparison. You see someone achieve something you'd like for yourself, and suddenly, you feel that pang inside. Sometimes, you don't even recognize it as envy, but rather as irritation, discomfort, or even anger. The danger is that envy rarely shows itself directly. It hides in subtle criticism, sarcastic comments, or even forced smiles. It's that inner voice that says, "Why did he get it and I didn't?" Or, "She doesn't deserve it as much as I do." This feeling, when fueled, turns into a vicious cycle of comparisons that steal our joy. The problem is, the more we give envy space, the more it grows. It convinces us that we'll never be good enough, that something is always missing. And in the process, we begin to see others as rivals instead of seeing our own achievements. It's like drinking poison, hoping others will suffer, but we're the ones who really suffer. Envy creeps into our hearts silently. At first, it may seem like just a pang of sadness when we see someone prosper. But if we're not careful, it turns into bitterness, resentment, and often anger. And that's precisely where the danger lies. We don't realize that our anger is often just envy in disguise. The Stoics already warned about this risk. They said that envy is a form of slavery because it takes away our freedom to live in peace. When we get stuck comparing our lives to others, we forget to value what we have and fail to act on what is truly within our control. The solution: first, recognize envy when it appears. Instead of trying to hide or deny it, we need to see this feeling as a warning sign. Then, bring our minds back to gratitude. By valuing what we already have, our achievements, our relationships, our own journey, we leave less room for comparison. Gratitude works as an antidote to envy. It reminds us that life isn't a competition. Everyone has their own path, with unique challenges and victories. When we understand this, we can transform the energy of envy into fuel for growth, instead of allowing it to become a poison. Envy isn't a fleeting emotion like sadness or anger, which come and go in cycles. It's persistent, lingering in our minds, and repeating itself like a nagging song we can't turn off. When we let this feeling dominate, we mentally relive unfair comparisons, constantly putting ourselves down in front of others. It's like carrying an invisible weight. While others go about their lives, we remain trapped in thoughts that drain our energy and steal our focus. This constant repetition is what makes envy so dangerous. It not only hurts, but also paralyzes us, causing us to waste time and energy on what is beyond our reach. Often, the root of envy lies in our own insecurities. It's that feeling of being left behind, that life isn't fair, or that we'll never have the same opportunities as others. But this kind of thinking is a trap. Instead of looking inward and acting on what is within our control, we become trapped in a narrative that only increases the pain. The Stoics invite us to change our perspective. For them, envy is an opportunity for self-discovery. Whenever it appears, it's a sign that something within us needs attention, perhaps an unfulfilled desire, perhaps a feeling of inadequacy. Recognizing this is the first step in transforming this poison into a learning experience. The secret is to remember that comparisons are never fair. Each person carries a unique story, circumstances, and choices. When we compare our lives to others, we forget everything we've overcome and achieved. It's like measuring a tree by the size of its trunk without considering the roots it had to grow to survive. Therefore, instead of fighting envy, we must learn to listen to it. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to show me? Where do I need to grow? What can I improve about myself? By doing this, you begin to use envy as a guide, not an enemy. And when this exercise is combined with gratitude, the result is powerful. Gratitude reminds us that we already have much more than we realize. It restores the clarity that our lives shouldn't be measured by others' yardsticks, but rather by how much we can evolve in relation to ourselves.
Often, we don't realize that envy lurks behind our anger. We think we're just irritated by a situation or frustrated with life, but deep down, it's comparison with others that's fueling this fire. Silent envy builds up until it boils over in the form of bad moods, outbursts, or resentment. The Stoics warned that this transformation of envy into anger is dangerous because it corrodes our mental clarity. When we're overcome by this feeling, we no longer see reality as it is. We begin to interpret others' victories as our own defeats, and this creates a destructive cycle, both for the mind and for our relationships. Toxic comparison makes us forget to measure our real progress. We focus on the brilliance of others' lives and ignore our own victories. It's as if we're always racing on a never-ending track because we use others' yardsticks instead of our own. The solution lies in shifting our focus. Instead of comparing yourself to those around you, compare yourself to who you were yesterday. This is the fairest measure because it shows how much you are growing within your own journey. Every step you take, no matter how small it seems, is a huge step forward compared to where you started. Accepting this principle brings lightness. It makes it clear that life is not a competition against the world, but a path of personal evolution. Envy ceases to be a burden and becomes a reminder. If something about another person awakens desire in you, it may just be a sign that there is untapped potential within you. Thus, instead of letting envy turn into anger, we can use it as motivation. By recognizing that this feeling is linked to the desire to grow, we can redirect our energy toward action, learning, and developing our own virtues. In the end, what matters is not what others achieve, but how you choose to live your life. And each time you overcome envy, you not only free yourself from a poison, but you also gain more clarity to continue firmly on your own path. The practice of gratitude emerges as a natural antidote to this spiral of comparison. When we cultivate genuine appreciation for what we already have, our perspective expands. We begin to see abundance where we once saw only scarcity, opportunities where before we saw only limitations. The Stoics practiced a powerful exercise. At the end of each day, they reflected on 3 things for which they were grateful. Not necessarily grand achievements, but small moments. A meaningful conversation, a lesson learned, even a challenge that strengthened them. This simple practice rewires our brain to seek the positive in our own experience. Envy also teaches us something valuable about our true desires. When we feel that pang at seeing someone else's success, it's worth pausing and asking, what exactly am I craving here? We often discover that we don't want exactly what the other person has, but rather the feeling we imagine it brings: security, recognition, freedom. This discovery is liberating. It means we can seek these feelings through unique paths, aligned with our values and circumstances. Someone's financial success may spark our envy, but perhaps what we're really seeking is the peace of mind we associate with money. And peace of mind can come in many different forms. Transforming envy into wisdom requires courage to look within. It takes honesty to recognize when we're being driven by this feeling, and humility to accept that it's part of the human experience. We're not worse people for feeling envy. We're normal people who can choose what to do with it. Great philosophers remind us that wisdom lies not in never feeling envy, but in quickly recognizing it and transforming it into something constructive. Like a goldsmith who transforms raw metal into a precious jewel, we can take this uncomfortable energy and mold it into motivation, compassion, and self-discovery. When we master this art, something magical happens. We begin to genuinely celebrate the victories of others, not out of obligation or wanting to appear good, but because we understand that someone else's success doesn't diminish our own possibilities. The cake of life has no limited slices. Every achievement around us is proof that achievement is possible. And so, step by step, day after day, we build a lighter, more personal, more authentic life. A life where the important yardstick is our own evolution, and where each small victory carries the weight of a great transformation. True freedom begins when we stop living as spectators of others' lives and become protagonists of our own story. This doesn't mean closing our eyes to the world around us, but rather changing the lens through which we view others' achievements. Imagine if we could see every success that sparks envy as a free lesson, a map of what's possible. When someone achieves something we desire, they are showing us that it is achievable. Instead of feeling left behind, we can think, if it was possible for that person, it can also be possible for me in my own way, in my own time. The Stoics called this obstacle as the way, transforming the obstacle into the path. Envy, which initially seems like an obstacle to our well-being, can become the very path to self-knowledge and growth. Every twinge of envy is an emotional GPS pointing to areas of our lives that demand attention. There's a subtle but profound difference between inspiration and envy. Inspiration moves us forward. Envy paralyzes us or moves us against something. When we see someone living a life we admire and think, "That's amazing. I want to learn how they got there," we're in the realm of inspiration. When we think, "It's not fair that they have this and I don't," we're in the realm of envy. The good news is that we can train our brains to choose inspiration. It's like strengthening a muscle. The more we practice, the more natural it becomes. We can start small. When we feel that familiar twinge, pause for 3 seconds and reframe the thought. "Why does she deserve this and I don't?" Can become, "What can I learn from her journey?" This shift in perspective doesn't happen overnight, and that's okay. Patience with ourselves is a fundamental part of the process. Every time we choose curiosity over resentment, we're planting a seed of transformation. Deep down, envy connects us with a universal truth. We all want to grow, evolve, become better versions of ourselves. This desire is natural and even necessary. It's what drives us forward. The problem arises when we confuse growth with competition, evolution with comparison. True growth is internal. It happens when we develop virtues like patience, courage, compassion, and wisdom. It happens when we learn to better manage our fears, when we become more resilient in the face of adversity, when we cultivate deeper, more authentic relationships. These internal achievements rarely generate envy in others because they are invisible to the superficial eye. But they are what build a life of true meaning. They are what allow us to sleep peacefully at night, knowing we are on the right path. Not the path others have laid out, but our own.